A whisper moves through the dust of ages. When the ashes of faith grow cold, a single ember shall defy the void. So begins the chronicle, an echo long entombed beneath ruined cathedra. The galaxy shudders beneath endless siege, and in the hollowed silence between dying stars, a question older than the Imperium itself awakens. Can a martyr truly die when belief refuses to surrender? Beneath the ruins of a shrine world swallowed by war, a lone scribe uncovers charred vellum that still burns with impossible light, its script shifting, refusing to remain dead. It speaks of her, the living saint, the blade of the Emperor's mercy. And it warns that faith itself trembles, for even miracles must one day reckon with their final cost. Across the corpse plains of Valiath Ix, where bones drift like snow, warriors whisper her name as a plea to survive the night. Battle sisters fight in shattered procession, every bolt round a prayer, every hymn a defiance against encroaching voidspawn. As they fall, they swear they hear wings, not of angels but of searing fire. Shadows recoil. Enemy chieftains call it hallucination, a failing of mortal sanity under divine pressure. Yet something descends through the smoke, not seen, but felt, like a heartbeat returning to a body long cold. The sisters kneel despite themselves. Hope flickers. They do not know if it is salvation, or the prelude to judgment. In the hollows of a half-dead star fortress, the Inquisition gathers forbidden testimonies. A confessor speaks of a woman aflame who walked unscorched through plasma fire. A guardsman babbles of a silhouette framed by golden radiance tearing through a demon prince's throat like parchment. None claim certainty, only awe, terror, and the crushing weight of belief. Inquisitor Mailbrick closes his eyes, hearing ancient warnings from the darkest vaults. Miracles are doors. Behind every door something waits, yet he feels the Emperor's presence as surely as he feels the cold stone beneath his gloves. If she has returned, then their war has shifted. But if something wears her image, then doom has entered their ranks wearing a saint's smile. Far from mortal wars, within the empiric tides where thoughts bleed into existence, a figure claws her way from oblivion. Celestine stands amidst a storm of fractured memories, battles fought, deaths endured, resurrections rising like broken suns. Each incarnation leaves scars on her soul, luminous and agonizing. She feels the Emperor's will like an unyielding hand guiding her, shaping her, reforging her. Yet this time, something clings to her wings, a darkness without shape, a parasite of possibility. She feels it observing, learning her grace, her fury. Still, she presses forward, wings beating against unreality, for humanity's cries thunder through the warp. She has no choice but to return, even if she no longer knows what will step through with her. On the ravaged world of Lornthos, Imperial armies crumble beneath monstrous tides of heretics and abyssal things. Vox channels choke with last rites. Commanders break beneath the inevitability of defeat. Then the sky slits open, with light not seen since ancient Terra's holiest days. A spear of brilliance pierces the battlefield, turning night to judgment. Celestine descends as though sculpted from the Emperor's own fury, her wings trailing fire that refuses to die. The enemy falters. The loyal fall to their knees. Even the land itself seems to breathe again. Yet Celestine feels a tremor ripple through her form, a reminder that resurrection is no longer a gift freely given. Something watches through her eyes, tasting the awe she inspires, waiting for a moment she cannot yet understand. In the hours that follow, she becomes the storm. Every swing of her blade carves purity through corruption. Every beat of her wings thunders with unbreakable conviction. Her Gemini stride beside her, resurrected in perfect synchronicity, their voices hymns of unyielding wrath. But as victory ignites across the front lines, Celestine senses prayers shifting. They no longer call for mere salvation. They expect it. They demand it. Faith becomes hunger, and hunger becomes weight. The more they believe, the heavier she feels the unseen presence entwined with her soul. Even in triumph, she wonders, is she still a servant of the Emperor, or the prison of something masquerading as hope. Within the sanctum of the reclaimed cathedral, survivors gather around her in reverence, their faces lit by ruin-stained glass and celestial fire. Celestine kneels before the altar, seeking the Emperor's clarity, her golden mask cracked with exhaustion. As she prays, the candles gutter despite no wind. Ecclesiarchal priests tremble, claiming they feel another soul standing beside her, tall, cold, alien to sanctity. Celestine's wings twitch violently as if rejecting invisible chains. She whispers a name she cannot fully recall, a word left behind from the warp storm that birthed her return. The priests do not hear it clearly, but the shadows do, and they recoil as though the syllable itself wounds them. Rumors explode across the Imperium faster than light of the Saint reborn, of miracles multiplying, of battles turned by her presence alone. Fleets alter course. Regiments swear renewed oaths, but for every miracle, a distortion follows. Vox signals carry faint echoes of Celestine's voice where she never spoke. Hologlyphs show afterimages lingering a fraction too long. Astropaths report dreams of wings made not of light, but hollow void edged with gold. Some claim these anomalies are side effects of her divine energy. Others fear she carries an echo of the warp's hunger within her soul. None dare speak the truth aloud, that faith can blind just as easily as it saves. When Celestine leads a crusade into the obsidian ruins of Gathra Secundus, she confronts a horror she recognizes without memory, a creature mimicking the shape of angels, feeding on belief with predatory grace. It greets her by name spoken in a dozen stolen voices. Her blade meets it in a storm of radiance, but as it dies, it laughs with a sound like wings tearing. Celestine staggers, feeling its essence coil around something within her, something dormant. Her Gemini rush to her aid, but Celestine sees fear in their eyes, not of the enemy, but of what reflected in her halo for a single impossible moment. As the campaign grinds on, Celestine presses deeper into faith's crucible. She leads assaults that defy probability, turns despair into triumph, ignites entire sectors with renewed devotion. Yet with each victory, she feels herself dimming, her light flickering like a candle fighting a suffocating presence. The Gemini whisper that her resurrections grow colder, slower. Celestine hides her dread behind resolute grace, but she knows something crucial, something divine, is slipping from her grasp. At night she dreams of her own wings falling away like scorched feathers, leaving her standing before the Emperor unable to speak his name. Inquisitor Maelbricht confronts her at last, deep within a war-shattered basilica. He demands to know what returned with her, what shadow hides behind her miracles. Celestine's expression fractures, sorrow, fury, and something unspoken. She insists she serves only the Emperor. Her voice wavers. The Inquisitor's psychic wards pulse in warning. For a moment, the air around Celestine bends as if time itself hesitates. Maelbricht draws a sanctified blade, but Celestine stops him with a single glance heavy with unbearable truth. She mutters, "It remembers me." The Inquisitor does not understand, and that terrifies her even more. On the eve of the Crusade's final march, Celestine stands atop the ruins of a world reborn, its sky streaked with dying ember light. The armies below chant her name with fervor that shakes the atmosphere. Her wings glow, bright yet trembling, as though holding back a storm no mortal eyes should witness. She can feel the presence stirring within her now, awake, patient, intertwined with her fate. It does not speak. It does not command. It merely waits. As the distant horizon fractures with a silent, impossible ripple of unreality, Celestine turns to the unseen watchers and whispers, "Not yet." The ripple expands, and something answers her. The ripple widens like a wound torn open across the heavens, and those who stand beneath, Celestine's trembling radiance, feel reality thin as though the Emperor's gaze itself has turned away. From that rupture comes a silence so profound it devours prayer, a stillness that steals breath, thought, memory. Celestine's wings dim as though some deeper night presses against them, seeking entry. Below, warriors falter mid-chant, their fervor collapsing into uncertain whispers. The world seems to lean toward her, awaiting a verdict neither mortal nor divine. And in that breath between heartbeats, the saint understands that what has awakened is not merely watching. It is remembering her, reshaping her, claiming her across every life she has lived and died. Yet she holds her stance, the fire of duty guttering but unbroken, unaware that countless eyes now look upon her with reverence and growing fear. Across the war hosts assembled beneath her, doubt stirs like a contagion. A veteran guardsman grips his las rifle as if it might anchor him to sanity, swearing he saw a second silhouette standing behind Celestine, a figure identical to her yet hollow skin, stretched thin over lightless bone. A canoness forces discipline with iron will, but even she cannot silence the tremor in her voice when she commands her sisters to hold formation. Some pray louder, hoping their faith will drown out the rawness they feel blooming like frostbite within their souls. Others avert their eyes entirely, terrified of the possibility that a saint may return bearing both salvation and omen, for in the Imperium, the line between miracle and warning is thinner than the edge of her blade. In the choir vaults of the shattered basilica, the faithful light candles that cannot decide if they wish to burn or die. Vox priests chant litanies grown hoarse with desperation, their voices weaving a tapestry of fear disguised as piety. They speak of Celestine's return in reverent tones, but the shadows behind them flicker unnaturally, stretching into elongated forms that should not exist. Confessors whisper among themselves, debating forbidden scripture, prophecies of the mirrored bride, an entity said to walk alongside chosen saints in ages of great collapse. Some argue that such texts are apocrypha best forgotten. Others claim no heresy survives unless truth feeds it. As arguments sharpen, candles extinguish in perfect unison, and in that sudden dark, every man and woman hears a single feather fall. They do not know if it came from salvation or doom. In the command sanctum, Inquisitor Maelbricht studies new reports with growing dread. Images captured by Auspex lenses show faint double shadows draped around Celestine during her final descent, small distortions, subtle, easy to dismiss. Yet patterns emerge, a misaligned halo, a reflection that lags by fractions of a second, a whisper detected by Vox recorders saying a name none can translate. His retinue urges caution, warning that to question a saint is to court damnation, political annihilation, and possibly worse. The ecclesiarchy demands he cease investigation immediately. High lords send veiled threats. But Maelbricht cannot stop. The Emperor's enemies hide in righteousness as easily as in chaos. And if something has sunk its claws into the Imperium's most sacred champion, then truth must be dragged into the open, even if it burns him alive. In the deep catacombs beneath the cathedral, battle sisters prepare for the coming crusade. Their armor is cracked, their faith bruised. They whisper among themselves in tones meant only for the stone to hear. Some swear their prayers feel muted, as though intercepted by an unseen intermediary. Others claim their dreams are filled with an angelic presence they cannot name, a figure who stands beside Celestine but never speaks. Sister Amara admits her terror, that she felt drawn to that second presence, as if it whispered promises of strength beyond mortal loyalty. As they don their armor, their hearts wrestle with two truths: devotion to the Emperor, and devotion to the saint who now frightens them. They march not as unshakable warriors, but as believers wrestling with cracks in their souls. Far above, Celestine herself slows, sensing emotions not her own flowing through her veins: awe, fear, hunger, worship. She feels them pressing against her like a second heartbeat, molding her, urging her toward a shape she never intended to become. Her halo flickers, and for one agonizing moment, she sees her own reflection split, one radiantly holy, the other void black and smiling with her stolen face. She tightens her grip on the ardent blade, praying her voice will reach him, praying that the Emperor still hears her amidst the growing storm. But faith wavers when heaven is silent, and Celestine realizes with marrow-deep dread that her repeated resurrections may not be sanctified gifts, but doors someone else has learned to open. On the front line, a regiment of Astra Militarum holds vigil beneath the fractured sky. They speak of omens, meteors falling upward, rivers running with faint silver luminescence, statues turning their heads toward Celestine when none watch. Soldiers debate in hushed tones whether these are blessings or harbingers. Commissar Duval silences dissent with curt threats, but even his iron discipline cannot mask his trembling hands. As night deepens, a strange frost creeps across their encampment despite the world's burning atmosphere. In that unnatural cold, every soldier dreams the same dream of a golden figure calling them to kneel, and a second figure urging them to rise and break their chains. When dawn comes, half cannot decide which command felt holier. Within the ecclesiarchal conclave, political treachery coils like venom. Cardinals argue furiously over how Celestine's presence should be used or controlled. Some see her as a herald of victory, a weapon to unify millions. Others fear she may deviate from doctrine, becoming a power beyond any mortal authority's reach. One cardinal, robed in crimson, dares whisper the unthinkable. What if the saint is no longer entirely of the Emperor? His words freeze the chamber. Such speculation is blasphemy of the highest order. Yet his gaze betrays terror, not of punishment, but of possibility. Their debate fractures into accusations, threats, and secret alliances. Faith becomes a currency to be spent, hoarded, or falsified. And in the midst of it all, none realize a silent figure listens behind the frescoed walls, recording every betrayal for reasons neither holy nor sane. Celestine seeks solace in the ruins of a shrine where she once fought and died. She kneels amid broken icons, whispering prayers older than her current incarnation. The air trembles. A faint silhouette sits across from her, identical wings, identical armor, identical sorrow etched upon its face. Celestine cannot breathe. The apparition lifts a hand in perfect synchronicity with her own, as though bound by mirrored fate. But its eyes are fathomless voids, and its lips move without sound, shaping words she cannot hear. Fear roots her to the ground. Is this her shadow? A future? A parasite? Or something that has walked beside her since her first resurrection, patient and famished? When she reaches out, the apparition fractures into a rain of black feathers that melt into the floor, leaving her shaking. Meanwhile, the common faithful gather around fires that provide neither warmth nor comfort. They argue whether Celestine's struggle is part of a divine test or a sign the Imperium has strayed from the Emperor's true vision. One woman, a pilgrim whose family died in the wars, confesses that she no longer knows where to place her faith, in the Church, the Inquisition, or the saint herself. A preacher responds with fury, condemning her doubts as treason, but even he cannot hide the fear in his eyes. As the flames sputter, a child claims he saw two angels circling the sky, one golden, one black. The adults dismiss him. But his quiet insistence lingers like a splinter in their minds, impossible to remove. In orbit, astropaths writhe in agony as messages from distant sectors grow corrupted. Each transmission involving Celestine carries an echo, a second voice layered beneath hers, distorted yet rhythmic, like a heartbeat forming words. Some astropaths go blind, others mad, claiming they saw wings unfurl across the void, stretching wider than a planet. Those still conscious attempt to decipher the signal. A single phrase emerges, repeated endlessly. The saint is not alone. Fleet commanders argue whether this is a warning or a declaration. The warp around the system churns in violent spirals, as if something massive stirs beneath its surface. The line between miracle and intrusion becomes impossible to discern. On the eve of Celestine's next march, the ground beneath the crusade trembles. Vox channels scream with static. A lone figure steps from the darkness, one of Celestine's own Gemini, face bloodless, eyes wide with horror. She collapses at Celestine's feet, whispering a truth that freezes every soul present. She had found another Celestine deep within the ruins, lying dormant inside a cocoon of molten gold flesh, still breathing. The world stops. The armies stare in stunned silence. Celestine herself cannot move, for the cocoon form bore her features exactly, except for the smile carved into its sleeping lips. And as the revelation sinks in, the ripple overhead tears open once more. The sky splits wider, bleeding with silent lightning as the cocooned version of Celestine lies exposed to the howling winds. The living saint feels the universe tilt beneath her feet, as though the Emperor himself has exhaled in disbelief. Her armies recoil, murmuring fractured prayers, some calling her false, others calling her victim. Fear spreads faster than faith. Celestine steps toward the golden chrysalis, her wings trembling with a dread that feels ancient, inherited across lifetimes she barely remembers. That sleeping smile, impossibly serene, impossibly wrong, threatens to unmake her. She reaches out, fingertips brushing molten gold shell, and her mind fractures into 1,000 mirrored memories, deaths, resurrections, victories, none of which she is certain were truly her own. Something within the chrysalis stirs, something that knows her better than she knows herself. Below the trembling sky, warriors kneel, not in reverence but confusion. A guardsman clutches his dog tag so tightly they cut into his skin, begging the Emperor to choose one Celestine as true. A battle sister screams at her canoness, demanding orders where none make sense. The canoness, usually an unshakable bastion, stares at the two mirrored saints with tears burning her eyes. She remembers campaigns where Celestine led them into impossible victory, yet now wonders if those triumphs were guided by the right hand of divinity or an unseen puppeteer. The weight of choice crushes her lungs. Every breath tastes of heresy. She whispers, "If salvation wears two faces, which one condemns us?" But no answer comes, only the echo of a heartbeat, neither human nor holy. In the darkness behind the crusade lines, priests debate forbidden scripture as the wind howls with metallic voices. A confessor opens a tome that should have been burned centuries ago, its pages stitched from the skins of martyrs. It speaks of duplicare animi, the twin soul, born when a divine being is resurrected too many times, splitting across timelines like fractured mirrors. Most of the priests recoil, calling the text blasphemy. But the confessor sees the signs too clearly: overlapping halos, double shadows, faith distortions. "If she has been split," he whispers, "then what returns each time may not be the same." Others demand silence, terrified the knowledge itself might corrupt reality. Yet the truth breathes between them, warm and living. As candles gutter, one priest feels a hand on his shoulder. When he turns, no one stands there. Maelbrick watches from orbit, the chrysalis visible even from the battle-scarred void. His inquisitorial retinue pleads with him to retreat, arguing that the system is no longer stable, but he ignores them. His mind races through 1,000 possibilities, each more damning than the last. Could the Imperium have built its faith upon a being they never fully understood? Could the Emperors will be intertwined with something far older, far darker, masquerading in golden wings? He thinks of prophecies sealed in vaults only inquisitors may enter. Prophecies speaking of a luminous paradox, a holy figure who would stand at the edge of becoming either the Imperium's greatest savior or its most exquisite doom. For the first time in decades, Maelbrick feels fear not as duty, but as a human being. In the trenches, soldiers huddled beneath shell-burnt sky. A veteran recounts seeing Celestine die, not once, but 4 times across his life. Every time she returned brighter, sharper, less human. "Maybe she isn't one person," he whispers. "Maybe she's all of them." A young recruit argues that the Emperor would not allow corruption in his chosen. The veteran laughs bitterly, remembering the countless worlds lost despite divine protection. As bombardment lights the horizon, the recruit admits a thought he cannot bear to speak louder. What if the Emperor cannot stop this? Their faith wavers like a candle in a hurricane. Above them, two silhouettes glow against the night, one radiant, one still slumbering. And both feel like omens. Celestine stands at the chrysalis, her breath shallow. The sleeping version of her shifts, and the shell cracks with a sound like bones grinding. A golden eye opens, pupil shaped like a cathedral's rose window. It looks directly at her, not with recognition, but with possession. Celestine staggers back, wings curling inward as if shielding her from a truth she cannot bear. The chrysalis Celestine rises, every movement smooth, rehearsed, inevitable. Its aura is colder, cleaner, free of doubt or pain. You hesitate, it murmurs without sound. You cling to identity. I am what you were always meant to be. Celestine feels her faith shatter with a single revelation. This version of her carries no burden of doubt, because doubt was stripped away, discarded, left inside her. The faithful gather in shattered chapels, praying for guidance, but prayer now feels like shouting into a grave. A preacher collapses mid-sermon, claiming he heard two voices answer instead of one warm, one cold. Pilgrims fear their devotions are being collected, siphoned into something unseen. Statues bleed light, hymns vibrate with unsettling harmonics. A child, too young to fear heresy, asks why the angels fight each other. Adults hush him, but the question lingers in every trembling heart. The Imperium has always survived on blind faith. But now faith has eyes, and what it sees terrifies it. Astropaths across the fleet feel the warp constrict. One falls screaming as visions claw through her skull, twin wings eclipsing stars, timelines folded like paper, countless versions of Celestine walking divergent paths, some saintly, some monstrous. She gasps a final prophecy before her mind melts into the immaterium. Only the unwanted will survive. Only the discarded will remember. Her death ruptures the ship's Geller field for a heartbeat. In that flicker, crew members swear they see Celestine standing on the hull. And beside her, another wearing her face but none of her grace. Celestine's Gemini, loyal unto death, now doubt their senses. One insists that the chrysalis form radiates a purer, holier light, as though the Emperor favors it instead. The other feels sick in its presence, sensing the absence of emotion, as if its devotion is mimicry. They turn on each other, blades nearly drawn, unable to reconcile what is real. Celestine watches them with despair. Her sisters have never faltered. Their fracture reflects her own. She realizes then that her soul has been carved into pieces, each molded into a new truth. And only one can be chosen. In the deepest vaults beneath the battlefield, a mechanicus savant discovers an artifact humming with impossible resonance, a fragment of Celestine's soul, preserved from a resurrection thousands of years old. Its energy signature matches neither of the two beings now above. That means a third exists, lost to time. The savant transmits his findings. Before the message finishes sending, the vault walls twist, and he is consumed by blinding gold light that whispers, "Too soon." The transmission continues without him. The chrysalis Celestine steps forward, its wings unfurling like a crown of judgment. Celestine raises her blade in trembling defiance. The armies watch, breathless, knowing this confrontation will redefine their existence. The false saint smiles with chilling serenity and speaks a truth that shatters every certainty. You are the echo. Not one. Celestine's knees almost buckle. Every resurrection, every victory, every moment of divine fire, were they borrowed? Was she never the original, merely a shadow clinging to purpose? The chrysalis figure lifts a hand, and the sky darkens, stars vanishing as though swallowed by a colossal unseen maw. Celestine feels something inside her unravel, a thread of self pulled taut by centuries of belief. She screams, wings bursting into flame. The armies recoil in terror. And in that blinding blaze, a third voice speaks from the void, neither of the saints before them. At last, the Trinity is awake. The words, "The Trinity is awake," echo through the air like the tolling of a world's death knell. vibrating through stone, steel, and bone alike. Celestine falls to one knee as light pours from her wounds, every memory in her soul screaming against the truth, unraveling her. The chrysalis saint stands unmoving, regal as a judgment throne, while the third presence, unseen yet undeniable, coils through the sky like a forgotten god stirring in its grave. The armies scatter or freeze, not from battle fear but from spiritual terror, as though the universe itself has turned its gaze upon them, weighing their worth. Celestine tries to rise, wings molting embers, whispering a prayer she no longer believes will be heard. Above her, the air warps, preparing for a revelation that promises to unmake everything she fought to uphold. Across the front line, soldiers brace for annihilation in numbed silence. Some clutch relics with trembling hands, begging a salvation they no longer trust. Others stare at the twin saints with hollow eyes, their faith a frayed thread threatening to snap. A sergeant confesses to his squad that he once believed Celestine's resurrections were proof of the Emperor's love. Now he fears they were warnings ignored. The wind carries the scent of burning sanctity, a heaviness that presses on the lungs like drowning. The men know they stand at the hinge of history, yet feel as insignificant as dust beneath the boots of giants. Their duty remains, but its meaning has become a labyrinth without center. In the shattered remains of a chapel, a canoness kneels amid ruins still warm from celestial fire. She bows her head, not in prayer, but in mourning for the purity she once believed unbreakable. The schism of Celestine fractures her spirit deeper than any battlefield wound. She recalls every vow sworn beneath vaulted cathedrals, every sister buried with hymns and incense. Now those promises taste of ash. She wonders if devotion can persist when its foundation trembles, or if loyalty becomes meaningless once truth twists into something monstrous. Yet even as grief claws at her heart, she tightens her gauntlets and rises. If faith is shattered, she will fight with the shards. Maelbrick's ship trembles as psychic pressure presses inward like the fist of an unseen titan. The Inquisitor grips the hololith rail, teeth clenched. He remembers forbidden doctrines whispered by dying mentors, that the Emperor's miracles were never stable, that the divine might fracture under its own impossible weight. Watching the twin saints and hearing the third presence, Maelbrick realizes he has crossed the threshold of knowledge mortals were never meant to tread. His retinue begs him to flee while escape is still possible, but he refuses. If truth demands witness, then he will bear it even if it burns his soul to cinders. Below, in the trenches lit intermittently by the flash of orbital fire, a young trooper writes a final letter to a family he knows will never receive it. He writes not of glory, but of doubt, of seeing two saints stand against each other, of feeling the Emperor's silence like a cold hand around his throat. He wonders if devotion means standing firm even when the heavens fracture, or if it means admitting fear when faced with impossible revelations. As explosions shake the earth, he tucks the letter into his armor and marches toward the front, not with hope, but with acceptance that duty remains even when faith falters. Near the chrysalis, Celestine rises unsteadily, her wings dragging like broken banners. She faces her reflection made flesh, and behind it, the presence that has no form yet casts a shadow over the entire sky. She whispers, "If I am the echo, then what are you?" The chrysalis version smiles gently, almost lovingly. "We are the consequences." Beneath Celestine's ribs, something cracks, not bone, but belief. She realizes her miracles were never hers alone. She has been shaped by forces that have waited lifetimes for this convergence. Yet she raises her blade again. Echo or not, she will not surrender her agency. The priests gathered at the base of the battlefield stare upward in petrified awe. Their faith unravels as they witness what no scripture ever dared foreshadow. Some collapse into fervent worship, proclaiming the Trinity as the Emperor's true revelation. Others recoil, accusing the twin forms of deceit born from the warp. Arguments become violence. Belief becomes a weapon. A priestess, tears streaming, asks her brethren if divinity can diverge and still be divine. No one answers. Their voices are swallowed by the rising storm. Astropaths across the sector scream as timelines twist. They see visions of three saints warring across centuries, one radiant, one void-forged, one unseen but ever-present. They witness worlds rising and falling in cycles shaped by Celestine's resurrections, shaped by a power that predates even the Imperium. One astropath, in her final breath, murmurs, "She was never alone. The galaxy lied to her." And she believed the lie. Her body bursts into pale flame, and her soul is dragged into the unfolding convergence. Celestine's Gemini stand between the saints, their loyalty cleaving them apart. One swears the chrysalis form embodies the Emperor's pure intent. The other believes only the wounded Celestine carries humanity's heart. Their blades cross, sparks of faith clashing with faith. They weep as they duel, each blow a hymn to the certainty they once shared. Their cries echo across the battlefield, the sound of devotion torn in two. The Mechanicus receives fragments of Forbidden's data, resonance patterns proving Celestine's soul has been split across epochs, each fragment evolving differently. One fragment embraced divinity, one embraced mortality, and the third was cast out entirely. Tech priests debate whether the Trinity is a natural evolution of miraculous resurrection or a cosmic infection of the divine. Their machines scream warnings, declaring an inevitable convergence, a moment where all three selves will become one or annihilate each other utterly. The chrysalis saint steps forward as the unseen presence grows denser, its form hinted only in distortions of light. Celestine stands her ground, though her flames flicker like a dying star. The armies fall silent as gravity itself bows. The ground cracks, the sky darkens. The chrysalis saint whispers, "It has chosen." Celestine whispers back, "So have I." Light erupts from her body, defiant, wounded, human. And as the radiance engulfs the battlefield, the unseen third presence begins to take shape. The Cathedral of Shattered Dawns groaned as if awakening from a century-long nightmare, its buttresses trembling beneath the rising, impossible radiance that poured from Celestine's wounds like molten starlight. Around her, warriors staggered, blind and breathless, their oaths hanging broken in the charged air. The sky above the devastated world split open with shrieks of orbital engines and the howls of demons clawing against the veil, yet for a single suspended moment, all sound folded inward. Celestine raised her blade, cracked, bleeding fire, and the vision she had carried across lifetimes burned through her eyes. She saw the Imperium's carcass, gnawed by faith and treachery. She saw saints unborn and heretics forgotten. She saw a throne that should have been a coffin. And in the hushed terror of those who witnessed her ascent, the first fracture in destiny widened, as if the galaxy itself recoiled from what she was becoming. The air peeled apart as the spear of vengeance slammed into the ruins, its drop pods bursting like iron tombs, disgorging Adeptus Sororitas in a rain of incandescent fury. Their chants were broken, discordant, not hymns but dirges. They advanced through clouds of ash, guided now not by certainty, but by a fear they did not dare name, that the saint before them was no longer bound solely to the Emperor's will. Celestine stepped forward, her feet hovering above the ground as though reality feared to touch her. A demon prince lunged from the smoke, roaring a truth it was never meant to speak, and her blade found its heart with a sound like universes tearing. Yet when its corpse dissolved, the echoes of its death whispered into the minds of all present, a single forbidden's question that should never have survived its throat. And still, Celestine did not refute it. A storm of psychic pressure broke across the battlefield as astropaths far above screamed in their darkened sanctums, their blood-writing prophecies they had never been asked to pen. Celestine felt each scream ripple through her resurrected bones, a chorus of mortal terror begging her to turn back from a path she had not chosen. Battle raged around her, bolters roaring, autocannons chewing through corrupted armor, vox lines collapsing beneath the weight of unspoken dread, but she moved as though walking through a memory older than the Imperium. The living saint reached for a dying seraphim, her touch gentle, luminous. Yet the warrior recoiled, weeping, whispering a prayer not for salvation, but for protection from the divine. Celestine paused. The battlefield shuddered, as if holding its breath. For the first time since her resurrection, her doubt, thin as spun glass, cracked. Fire rained from the heavens as orbit-to-surface bombardment ripped apart the horizon. Shockwaves flattened entire districts, turning reliquaries into pulverized dust. Yet Celestine stood untouched in the center of the destruction, as if she existed half a step removed from the universe's laws. When she raised her eyes to the burning heavens, she saw the silhouettes of fleets, loyalist, heretic, lost, colliding in silent carnage above. But she also saw something else, threads of golden light, severed and fraying, weaving across the void like wounded constellations. They pulsed, as though alive, as though calling her to choose which ones must heal and which must be cut forever. Below her, Canoness Viridiana knelt with a grimace of defiance, calling out to her saint. Celestine answered, but her voice came layered, human warmth braided with something older, colder, and no longer certain it belonged to mankind. The ground quaked as a titan collapsed in the distance, its machine spirit howling its final, maddened litany, while traitor engines swarmed like carrion beasts. Celestine strode through the firestorm toward the heart of the city, where a blasphemous ritual clawed its way toward manifestation. Around her, sisters and soldiers faltered as they beheld her aura shifting, no longer a halo of pure gold, but streaked with spectral hues that mixed sanctity with something akin to cosmic grief. When a squad of stormtroopers knelt, begging her for command, she hesitated. Her orders could no longer be simple, no longer the reflexive utterance of faith, for she had seen what awaited mankind if she obeyed the Emperor unquestioned. She had seen what awaited if she did not. Silence clung to her as she raised her burning sword, and the galaxy stirred, awaiting her decision. A wound in reality gaped before the ruins of the ecclesiarchal palace, bleeding distortion into the mortal world. Amid the roiling tear, figures writhed. Heretics, demons, lost psychers chained to their own regrets. Celestine approached them, her wings unfurled like banners of war and mourning intertwined. A massive demon, its form twisting with stolen memories, reached toward her, murmuring that her destiny was not the Emperor's to dictate. Sisters opened fire, their bolts exploding across warped flesh, yet its final words slithered into every ear. She remembers what he does not. Celestine froze. For a heartbeat, the battlefield dimmed, all sound swallowed by the weight of something older than truth. Within her chest, light flickered, not failing but reshaping. And when she severed the demon's head, the wound in reality shivered as though recognizing her. The sky collapsed into a hurricane of warp anomalies as sorcerers chanted from atop shattered spires, their voices twisting through dimensions. Celestine leapt toward them, each stroke of her wings unraveling their wards. With every sorcerer slain, visions exploded across her mind. Memories of past incarnations, deaths she had endured, futures she was being sculpted into. She saw a version of herself kneeling at the Emperor's side as Terra burned. She saw a version of herself turning away from his throne. She saw a version who shattered the galaxy to spare humanity a greater doom. Her sword trembled in her grip as these specters converged. Below, the faithful watched her with hope and fear braided tight, unable to distinguish miracle from omen. Celestine whispered, "I am still his," but her wings, luminous and trembling, betrayed uncertainty. Thunderheads of ash rolled across the ruins as traitor guard regiments charged, their banners stitched with lies, their throats raw with blasphemous praise. Celestine descended upon them, her blade cleaving through bodies and her wings igniting the air with holy conflagration. Yet with every wound she inflicted, she felt their memories bleed into her. Conscripts broken by starvation, commanders betrayed by promises of salvation, entire worlds abandoned by the Imperium they had once died to protect. Their hatred was not without cause. Celestine staggered, overwhelmed by the crushing mosaic of their suffering, and for a moment, the fire around her dimmed. A sister pulled her from the fray, whispering, "Saint, your light falters." But Celestine only closed her eyes, shaking, for she could not deny the truth. Some of these enemies had once prayed to her for deliverance. A psychic scream detonated from deep beneath the catacombs, a pulse so violent that entire battalions collapsed, clutching their skulls. Celestine shot downward, carving through collapsing masonry until she reached the ancient vault where the echoes of Forbidden's prophecy stirred. A mural adorned the far wall, half erased by time and doctrinal purity, yet still unmistakable. A winged figure bearing her likeness, gazing not upon the emperor, but upon something sealed beyond the stars. And beneath it, a single line etched in thousands of forgotten dialects. "The saint remembers the first light." Celestine touched the engraving, and agony lanced through her being as memories long exiled from her soul flooded back, not of her mortal life, but of the first time she had ever been resurrected. Something had guided her then, something not divine, something not human. Explosions reverberated through the earth as traitor engines breached the vault, and Celestine rose to meet them, a tempest of fractured divinity. Her wings lashed outward, sending arcs of light slicing through demon engines and corrupted ceramite alike. Yet even as she fought, the memory continued to unravel inside her. The first light, an ancient force entwined with her fate long before she had ever sworn service to the Emperor. It was neither benevolent nor cruel, only vast, patient, and waiting. Celestine's fury waned. She turned her gaze toward the surface, seeing the war not as a clash of faiths, but as a struggle between truths: the Emperor's truth, humanity's truth, and the one that had shaped her. Blood dripped from her blade as she whispered, terrified, "What am I fighting for?" The battle above intensified as the fleets in orbit unleashed their final reserves, scattering burning wreckage across the atmosphere. Celestine ascended through the smoke, her wings dim but resolute, while below her armies waged a war they no longer understood. Canoness Viridiana confronted her atop the ruins, her armor cracked, her eyes ablaze. "Saint," she demanded, "what have you seen?" Celestine hesitated, a rare and fragile thing. "A truth you are not prepared to hear." Viridiana raised her bolter, trembling yet resolute. "If you turn from him," Celestine stopped her with a hand pressed against the canoness's gauntlet. "I turn from nothing," she said, though her voice carried the ache of a lie. At that moment, a shadow swept across them, not demon, not machine, but something older, and the very air recoiled. The world itself seemed to exhale in dread as the shadow resolved into a figure descending through the smoke, a being of impossible radiance and impossible darkness, wearing neither the visage of demon nor angel. Celestine felt her heartbeat die and restart in the span of a blink. The figure spoke without opening its mouth, its voice slithering directly into the marrow of every soul on the battlefield. "You have remembered me, little flame." Celestine's knees weakened, her wings faltering as ancient recognition ignited within her. Around them, warriors from both sides dropped their weapons, paralyzed by a terror beyond the warp. The figure reached out a hand, familiar, intimate, horrifying. Celestine whispered, "No, not now." But the being only smiled. "Your resurrection was never his gift alone." And in that moment, the galaxy shifted. The battlefield fell silent as the being's voice receded, leaving only a trembling stillness that tasted of dust and revelation. Celestine hovered there, her wings dimming by degrees, her halo flickering like a candle resisting the wind. Around her, the survivors, loyalist and heretic alike, stared not at each other, but at the space the entity had occupied, as though afraid it might return. Nothing moved. Not even the banners torn loose by the storm dared flutter. Celestine's sword dipped, its borrowed radiance draining away into the broken stones beneath her. In that fading light, she whispered a name she did not remember learning. The world did not answer. And as the ash settled across ruined spires and shattered icons, the truth lay heavy in the air, that something ancient had claimed a piece of her soul long before the Imperium ever called her saint. Celestine descended through the lingering smoke, her boots settling upon ground still warm from orbital fire. The sisters approached her warily, no longer out of reverence, but out of fear of what she might now represent. Canoness Viridiana's voice cracked as she spoke, not as a commander, but as a woman seeking reassurance. "Are you still ours?" Celestine looked at her, truly looked, and saw the weight of centuries of unquestioned loyalty in the canoness's trembling stance. She wished to lie, wished to promise certainty, wished to bind herself again to the simplicity of faith. But her tongue remained heavy with unanswered truths. Instead, she placed her hand upon Viridiana's helm, the gesture gentle yet distant, and murmured, "I am still here." It was the only truth she had left, and it was scarcely more comforting than silence. The dead lay in rows that stretched beyond the horizon, their armor cracked, their faces dusted by the settling ash of a world's last prayers. Celestine walked among them like a fading constellation drifting across a dying sky. Every body she passed seemed to whisper, not words, but echoes of the lives they had lived before war hollowed them. A seraphim's lifeless eyes reflected her diminishing glow, and Celestine knelt, touching the warrior's cheek. The warmth she once could summon, warmth that revived, comforted, ignited hope, no longer obeyed her. Her miracles had grown quiet. In their absence, she felt a grief deeper than any wound she had endured. Around her, the survivors bowed their heads, unsure whether they mourned the fallen, or mourned the dimming of the one who had once outshone death itself. The ruins of the ecclesiarchal palace cracked beneath the strain of celestial aftershock, its toppled statues casting long shadows over the wasteland. Celestine ascended its shattered steps, seeking solitude atop what remained of the great balcony where sermons had once drawn millions to their knees. Now only wind answered her, slipping through fractured arches like a ghost recounting ancient hymns. She placed her hand upon a broken column and felt the memory embedded within it. Countless voices raised in devotion, hope swelling like choruses of living fire. The memory stung. The Emperor's name lingered there, heavy and expectant, yet her lips could not shape it as they once had. She bowed her head, unsure if she sought forgiveness or farewell. And for the first time in all her resurrections, she felt truly alone beneath the gaze of a silent cosmos. As the tides of warp storms receded, the skies above the ruined world softened into a muted scarlet, like the closing of a wound that would never fully heal. Celestine spread her wings and lifted herself into the open air, hovering above a city that resembled an ossuary sculpted from the bones of forgotten empires. She saw the remnants of war, fallen banners half buried in soot, shattered aquilae, broken relics that once radiated certainty. Now they were relics of doubt. Her gaze traveled to the distant hills where the first dawn struggled to rise. But even that light felt hesitant, unsure whether it was still welcome. Celestine closed her eyes. The war had not ended. The truth had not resolved. But a chapter had closed, burned into the stone and soul of this world until the end of memory. The sisters gathered at the foot of the ruined cathedral, forming a silent vigil around a cracked, blackened altar. Celestine joined them, her footsteps echoing through the hollowed space as though the very stones wished to remember her before she vanished again. She placed her blade upon the altar, not in surrender, but in exhaustion. Its glow sputtered, casting faint halos that flickered against the ruined stained glass. Viridiana approached, her voice hushed. "Saint, what do we tell the conclave?" Celestine's eyes traced the fractured murals above them, scenes of saints who had never faltered, heroes who had never doubted. Lies, she realized, necessary lies. "Tell them," she said softly, "only what must be believed." Viridiana nodded, tears threatening. Truth had become a burden too vast to carry, and Celestine had no strength left for another war of faith. Night reclaimed the world, spreading its mantle across cratered plains and twisted rebar, that jutted from the earth like broken spears. Celestine walked into the darkness alone, each footstep sinking into ash that had once been cities. Stars flickered overhead, dim and weary, as though they too bore witness to the straining of cosmic truths. The entity's final whisper lingered within her mind, a reminder that her destiny was entangled with forces beyond the Imperium's myths. She felt both diminished and expanded, her sanctity scarred, her soul stretched thin between man and something older. A solitary wind curled around her, carrying with it a question she could not escape. If her resurrection was not solely his gift, what did that make her? Saint? Weapon? Pawn? Or the first herald of change the Imperium could not control? In the distance, the ground trembled with the slow collapse of a manufactorum spire weakened by bombardment. Celestine looked back only once, watching the structure fall like a dying titan, sparks arcing from its metal ribs. It struck the earth with a muffled roar that rolled across the plains like a final breath. Dust rose in a vast plume, obscuring the battlefield as though the world itself wished to draw a veil over its wounds. Celestine turned away, her wings feathered with soot, their glow ebbing into the night. She felt the pull of the cosmos tugging at her essence, not a command, but an invitation. For the first time, she wondered what her purpose might be if she stepped beyond the boundaries of imperial doctrine. The unknown horizon beckoned, and she walked toward it, unsteady but unbroken. Hours passed, or perhaps days. Time softened into a haze as Celestine reached the outskirts of a forest charred by plasma fire. Amid the blackened trunks, small embers still glowed, tiny sparks of life resisting the void. She knelt beside one faint patch of warmth where a flower, half burned, half alive, struggled to rise from the scorched soil. She touched it gently. This time, no miracle surged from her fingertips. Instead, she exhaled and felt something more fragile than divine power stir within her, the ache of simple, human sorrow. She whispered to the flower, to the soil, to the universe itself, "What end awaits those who endure?" No voice answered, no vision rose. Only the soft crackle of dying embers remained, and it was enough to make her feel small and painfully mortal. A thunderous quiet settled over the land as Celestine reached the edge of a cliff overlooking the vast battlefield. From this height, the scars of war spread like veins across a dying world, lit only by the pale light of distant stars. She wrapped her arms around herself, wings folding inward in a gesture that felt less like protection and more like resignation. Memories washed over her, the battles she had survived, the victories she had bought with her deaths, the prayers whispered into her name as though she were salvation incarnate. But now those memories came with new, unsettling questions. How many of her miracles were truly hers? How many were shaped by the entity that had stood before her? And how much of her faith was built upon foundations she was never meant to examine? The stars offered no clarity, only their cold, ancient glow. Wind swept across the cliffside, carrying with it faint echoes, not of the present, but of possibilities. Celestine felt the pull of the warp in its gentlest form, not as a storm, but as a whisper threading through the quiet. She knew she could leave this world behind, vanish into the wider darkness, follow the echo of the first light to its distant source. Or she could remain, bind herself again to the Imperium that had worshipped her without ever understanding. Her choice. It was a weight she had not expected to bear. Celestine closed her eyes, lowering her head, and allowed herself one breath of stillness. The galaxy was shifting, faith was cracking, and she, half saint, half forbidden's echo stood at the threshold of a destiny no prophecy had ever dared record. The decision lingered unspoken, trembling like a candle in an endless night. Dawn brushed the horizon with thin strokes of pale gold, softening the battlefield into a landscape of silent remembrance. Celestine rose, her wings unfolding slowly, their light muted but present, like a promise made in exhaustion, not certainty. She gazed once more upon the ruins, the fallen, the banners now buried beneath wind-carried ash. Her voice drifted into the morning air, barely more than a prayer, barely more than a question. If faith demands sacrifice without end, who carries the cost? No answer came. Only the distant rumble of a world beginning to rebuild itself, stone by stone, lie by lie, hope by fragile hope. Celestine stepped into the newborn light, her figure fading into the glow until she became little more than a silhouette, a reminder, a warning, a blessing, or perhaps none of these at all. And the chronicle closed its final page, leaving only silence and the echo of wings retreating into eternity. If you stood witness to this tale of faith and ruin, I humbly ask, like, subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments.